Hey guys, it's Joe. I'm back here with the Practical Prepper podcast. What if your life depended on you to be able to detect deception? So I have with me again here a friend of mine, retired Master Sergeant Ken Robertson. He has spent some time overseas, and he spent some time in places in which he had to, his job was to go find some bad people. And when you're going to find bad people, sometimes you need to ask for directions, meaning, have you seen this bad person? And the people who you're talking to are going to maybe send you in the direction of that bad person. And that's awesome. That's amazing. And the world's going to be a little bit better. Sometimes they're not. And they're going to send you into a trap. Or they're going to send you purposefully just a wrong direction. And so how do you get through that, and how do you think through that situation? If we can go down the journey with Ken and think about how to utilize this idea of detecting deception as someone who, like he is a global threat mitigator, we could take that back down to my level as just a dad trying to figure out what happened at school today. Without any further ado, here's Ken and I in my truck on the way to the gun range.
All right.
Do you want to talk about the detecting deception?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I studied communications, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've taken some classes on understanding the biomechanics of when people are starting to deceive, but
how
I've never
how their emotions are leaking what they're thinking and feeling out through
the haptics, their dilations, their up and gaze, different things like that. But I've never actually used any of it, so I don't know if any of it's crap or not.
All of that is one of those things that it became. So, if you're really skilled and you spend a lot of time working on that and you have studied and practiced, much of that is about how much do you practice, how much are you spending time working on the skill sets to be able to prosecute those kinds of pieces of information in a split second.
Mm-hmm.
There, TV shows like Lie to Me and certain mentions in movies and stuff about upward gaze, and this accesses memory and this
Right.
accesses creativity, and stuff like that. When for your average person, who is talking to someone who is just another average person, a lot of the skills that you develop, if you're a parent, let's say you're a parent,
Right.
of a kid who's 15 years old, you've probably gotten pretty adept at seeing some of the more common ways that people lie,
Mm-hmm.
and how they give themselves away. The really intense eye contact, like I refuse to break your gaze kind of eye contact. The using do not instead of don't, or did not instead of didn't.
Lack of contractions, right?
Yeah, those sorts of things where you're trying to use everything within your power to overemphasize your point, over-explaining, using 20 words when 4 would have worked. That sort of thing. And people have a really difficult time controlling themselves because most people are uncomfortable lying. And it comes down, and it sounds like a cop-out, but it's very true. And once again, we're talking about the average person versus the average person, as opposed to someone who is a skilled interviewer and has spent years doing this. Your average, police detective who has 7 or 8 years of doing just that,
Mm-hmm.
where that's a primary part of the job, versus say someone who, psychologically may be a sociopath or a pathological liar, where they legitimately on some level believe what they're saying or have zero compunction about lying and those sorts of things that normally make the normal person's skin kind of crawl.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really what's happening when you see someone physically reacting to their own lie. It's a combination of, I'm so afraid I'm going to get caught in this, I'm so afraid I'm going to have to talk my way out of or around this, I'm going to have to keep on lying, and there's the fear of being caught, and then there's, for the average person, they're just uncomfortable with what they're doing because they know it's scumbaggy.
Right. So you have to start with an assumption that you're dealing with a moral person.
Maybe not even necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't make a whole lot of assumptions about them at all. If you go into it with an open mind and just process what you see and hear, like, is their communication style, like, just does it seem a little off in comparison with what we normally expect from people?
You hit on that again, and I think that's one. Every time we talk about different topics, I hear you bring up the same thing. I think it's one of those baseline skill sets. But you're talking about pattern recognition and breaks from the expected pattern.
You have to be a student of your environment, and by that I don't just mean your drive to work and your situational awareness. You have to be a student of, when you deal with people on a daily basis, you should process those experiences and gain what you can from them, both positive and negative. And that's not so much like that you carry around, preconceived notions or prejudices or anything like that. It's just simply, if you're not learning from your experiences and learning from your environment, you're wasting a massive part of your life, and skills that you could be developing. And I would tell people to lean on the times that you dealt with someone you have some sort of emotional contact with, and you felt like they were lying to you. But because you have that emotional bond and you have that need to believe, you believed what they were saying.
You wanted them to be true.
You wanted it to be true. And then come to find out, you were right in your assumption, you were right in your instincts, and they were lying. And it's a matter of, it's not so much, expecting everybody to be lying, or every conversation has to turn into an interview or an interrogation. It's just simply, oftentimes you should trust your instincts. They're telling you things based on your experience. It's the subconscious processing of information. You're not even, I feel like, you don't feel like it. Your brain thinks it, and it's trying to tell you in a very subtle way.
Right. You've got this supercomputer. We don't have a computer on Earth that can process like the human brain.
Right.
And it is picking up more elements and more details than we could ever comprehend. And we can't comprehend it in our conscious person. So There's something kind of going, does not compute.
There's something about this that just doesn't pass the sniff test. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't smell right. It's too good to be true. The situation doesn't line up with the information I'm gathering. All of those sorts of things. And we're talking about, you go from zero, like, I just walked up to you and we started having a conversation for whatever reason, and this is the feeling I'm getting from you. And it could be, you're in a sales situation. It could be that, things have gone weird and you're in a bartering situation. All sorts of stuff. There's all kinds of places where you deal with strangers on a one-on-one, face-to-face conversation type level, where you trying to figure out the veracity of what's coming out of their mouth is important. And it's just that. Now, I would say that if you're in this type of situation where you can gather information prior to if you can prep yourself going into this situation. Let's use car buying as an example, because everyone who goes to a car dealership feels like they're being lied to.
That's right.
Feels like they're being cheated.
Right.
Because the relationship is set up to be very adversarial from the beginning. For a lot of people, it's an extremely emotional event. It's a large sum of money. You're making a decision about something that you're going to have a contract and you're going to have obligation. But not only that, you're going to have a relationship with this thing that you're purchasing, and there's a lot of emotion involved. And people will walk into something like that completely unarmed. Oh, I was driving down the street and I saw the car dealership and I knew I'd been thinking about it, so I just stopped in. And next thing you know, they're walking out with a $40,000 bill over their head, and they're wondering what the hell happened to them.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where, so take that as an example where generally, are car dealerships trying to make money? Yes. Are car dealerships trying to rip people off? Not generally, because it's not super great for business. If they can get a little extra, a couple hundred here, 1,000 there, are they going to do it? Absolutely. But are they straight up trying to steal from you? No. But it's a fantastic place to walk in with a little bit of information and then use your elicitation skills and letting your feelings kind of like of what's being said to you. And the thing is that when you're dealing with an experienced salesperson who does kind of bend the truth and stretch it a little bit, or is used to dealing with people in an adversarial situation, it's a great opportunity to practice these skills, because they're going to be so comfortable and such a routine situation for them that those stretchings of the truth and the things that they're, it's not 100% true, they're going to be comfortable with that coming out of their mouth.
That's interesting you say that, because there was a part of me I'm waiting on your next word to go. Is he going to say that they're more like the detective and therefore you're at a disadvantage? Or what you said is they've been doing this so much they think they have you on the ropes, therefore their guard is down and they're not picking up on you as much.
I think that if you walk in completely unarmed, they have you on the ropes from the beginning, because not only do they have that comfortableness with being a little shady, but they also have a practice selling system. They know how to work on your emotions. Much like, let's say your kids are lying to you. Your 15-year-old stayed out too late and was supposed to be at a friend's house, and you're finding out that things weren't exactly what you thought they were. That sort of stuff. It's that same kind of situation where they know walking in the door that you're going to be a little bit of emotional, and that they have tools that they can use to use your own emotions against you. And it's the kind of thing where, okay, so let's say you spent some time researching this particular vehicle and researching sales numbers and what the true MSRP is, and hey, are there any buybacks from the the manufacturer giving them back-end money to sell a higher volume of these, to where they don't really need to sell it anywhere near SRP and still make a bunch of money. And are you getting any of that money? Are there any other bonuses or offers on the table that they're not telling you about?
So you arm yourself with facts, you do the research.
Arm yourself with facts and information, and then also have a couple, sucker punches that you're holding back. If you've got, let's say you have a trade-in that you want to try and trade in on this vehicle, make your 100% deal on the car and then turn around and start talking about your trade-in, because at that point you've got them locked into a price. And if you walk in once again and you're armed and you're smart about what you're doing with your trade-in, and approximate values, it gives you the capability to really get the appropriate number on the board. And it's one of those things where you guys made the deal and then you sucker punched them with a, hey, I got a trade in, and now they're on the ropes and they are feeling a little off guard, and you're doing a lot to them that they generally would be trying to do to you.
That makes a lot of sense. I was going to bring that up, actually, because that's where I was going to go, is flip the deception side of it now to I want to deceive, cause that's exactly the technique that I'll use, right? I'll go in, let's make a deal. Do you have a trade-in? And I'll go, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Or
I'm pretty sure I'm going to hang on to it and use it as my work car.
Right.
You get through the entire deal of your full, new car.
Right.
And then it's, hey guys, I've got this new car. Honestly, in second thought, it doesn't make sense to keep it on my insurance or whatever. And you're using a little bit of deception, and you're using a little bit of, you're dropping information at a tactical time that's better for you. And it's very much the same way when you're entering into a situation where you feel that there may be adversity from the very beginning, that it's a opposition type conversation from the start. Plus, here's the thing, if I arm myself with a little bit of information and I walk in the door and you start off by not being 100% truthful with me, I immediately know what I'm dealing with. I can make the choice to go deeper into this or to pull away right there on the spot, and now I have solid reason for the way I feel. I'm not just relying on an emotional feeling that's, a maybe I'm just being weird, and maybe he's just kind of a socially odd guy, so it seems like he's lying or seems like he's holding back. But if you walk in and you're armed with some truth and some understanding and some facts, and you immediately get, you know, someone who isn't being 100% upfront with you, well, then you know what you're dealing with. And really, honestly, I think that those, for the average person, you see a lot of stuff and you hear a lot of people talk, and, you know, you can watch all the YouTube videos in the world about, you know, figuring out how people are lying, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the problem. Okay, they'll give you, hey, here's this skill and this skill and this skill and this skill. And you have those skills now in your head, and it's the only thing you're looking for. But you weren't processing that person honestly previously. So you go into a conversation looking for those 4 things, and now all of a sudden it's all you see.
Right.
It's like, once again, you just bought a new car that you haven't seen anywhere on the streets, and now you're sitting cheeks in the seat in your new car and you see it everywhere. Well, you weren't looking for it before, because why would you?
Yep.
And now all of a sudden that it's right in your face, it's all you can see. And I think there's some danger to people arming themselves with skills that take a lot of practice and a lot of time to build the actual, and that's why it's called a skill. It takes time. It's not, you can't just, you know, nobody picks up a driver for golf and hits a hole-in-one every time. It's not how it works. It's a skill that's built over time, you know, and the best in the world still screw it up sometimes. And it's the kind of thing where, you know, people get these huge skills that take a lot of time to refine, and then they're like, oh, I got you. And it's like, well, you know, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, and you're probably going to end up in some unfortunate positions where I was positive because I was doing this thing that I saw or I heard about. Well, yeah, you didn't take the appropriate amount of time to make sure that you were really good at that thing.
You're going to make some false positives.
A lot of them. In the beginning, you're going to make a lot of them.
And what's the old saying? If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. Well, it's the other kind of thing where, once again, if you're dealing with someone who, the best lie is 90% truth. You know, it's a little tiny omission or a little tiny addition that makes it a lie. But the base fundamentals of it are the truth. And for a practiced liar, those skills that you just have not even a working knowledge of, but you have an awareness of, you're not going to catch that guy. And you're going to catch a lot of people who aren't lying to you. They just have odd speech patterns or have odd mannerisms. You know, God forbid you come up against someone who is legitimately just a socially awkward person and just talks odd or doesn't make eye contact ever, is a low talker and then talks fast. Those sorts of things. Like, a lot of times it's just a matter of personality glitches that if you don't understand that you need to take time and get a baseline of who this person is, you're gonna develop a lot of false positive.
So when I am talking to the dealership about my trade-in, hey, there's a chance I might keep this thing. That 10% lie, 90% truth is...
Well, here's the thing. If they didn't give you what you wanted, would you keep it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's 90% truth to that, because if I don't get the number that I know it's worth, well, hell, it's just too easy to, you know, throw out my driveway with a for sale sign on it.
Right.
And I'm much more likely to get what I want out of a one-to-one sale than I am trying to deal with a dealership that still has... It's much more difficult to sell something to somebody who's going to turn around and resell it, because they have to have a profit on the back end in their head.
Yep.
Whereas a guy who shows up in your driveway and buys it, he just wants to drive the car.
Right. Yeah, and on their side, right, the margins are much smaller when you're dealing with a dealership, so you have to be a lot slyer, you have to be a lot more prepared. All those things come into play. It's actually, for the average person, when you're talking about what really, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what are they going to deal with and what's at stake, buying your house or buying your car are probably the two biggest times in their lives when, you know, sussing out absolute truth is probably the most important thing. So we talked a little about practical. If I can ask tactical, have you ever had a situation in which you're going somewhere, you're doing something at work, and you're just saying to yourself, I'm here and I now am somewhere asking people, hey, I'm looking for someone bad. Did he go this way or this way? And you've got to figure out, do I trust this or not trust this? Is that something that is a practical piece?
Stuff similar to that, but you have to understand that it's there are so many nuances to tactical questioning in that type of environment, and you're talking about, there is fear involved. There's fear involved because you're holding guns on these people.
Right.
Or, guns are involved. I showed up with a bunch of guns, and they, on some level, they're afraid of me. They know that I kill people. And then you also have the situation where you're dealing with cultural differences, where a lot of the cues that would make sense between me and you,
right,
and understanding those cues would give me some idea of whether you're being truthful or not. It may just be a societal thing and a cultural thing where, it's, in a lot of places when people are embarrassed, they smile real big and cover their mouths and stuff like that. Or, hand gestures say a lot to them that they don't mean anything to us, because there isn't any cultural weirdness about me moving my hands around while I'm talking kind of stuff. It's the sort of thing where it's such a different environment that I think a lot of those lessons learned don't process as well.
Gotcha.
Oftentimes in a tactical environment, especially in when you're in someone else's country and you're prosecuting targets and stuff like that, and you're questioning people, it sounds horrible, but it's true. I always go from the prospect that they're lying to me or they're not 100% truthful right off the bat. You have to immediately start thinking about, what are their motivations? Is this person, did the first thing this person do ask me for money? Is the first thing this person did, they talked about how they hate this element that we're asking about or dealing with?
Those frame the emotions that they have.
Exactly. And here's the thing. There are a lot of people that are like, well, if someone asks you for money right off the bat, that's a huge problem. Well, I've seen it go both ways, where I can kind of appreciate someone who, they just see it as a monetary opportunity, and for the right price, they're going to say or do whatever, needs done, knowing that I may come back if they lie to me because I bought something from them.
Yep.
If I want to return on it, it's not going to be a pretty day for anybody.
Right.
Whereas the person who, it's strictly out of patriotism, like it's some sort of loyalty. And it's very rarely a loyalty to their country, because most of the people we're dealing with right now in tactical situations, it's tribal loyalty is what we generally see, or it may even just be village loyalty.
It's like an extended family almost.
Yeah. And it's, this person is from a different tribe, or this person is from a different neighboring village that they have some sort of beef with, water or whatever.
McCoys, right?
Honestly, you'd be surprised how often those types of emotions really do play into things. And then sometimes it's just, I've had people very specifically, I want out of where I am right now. I will give you this information on this HVT because
but I cannot be here anymore.
I can't be here anymore. I want to be moved to such and such a place, and I want this kind of money, and you have to take all these people with me. And it's one of those things where, if it's within the realm of possibility, that guy, I trust the shit out of him.
Right.
Because not only is he saying, yes, I'll give it to you for a price, he's naming an extremely specific price, and he's telling me where to put him up. Like, he knows I'm going to know exactly where he is.
Right.
And so, a lot of the relationships that are built on just straight up cash for information, they work. They really do. A lot of times when it's some sort of leverage thing, or like, I've got this over you, I think that's the most precarious position, when people try to leverage people with fear, because really, honestly, it doesn't work like it does in TV. People will take fear for so long, and then they get fed up. They get tired of living in fear of this constantly hanging over my head, and it just depends on what kind of people you're dealing with, So someone who comes at me and says, I want a very specific thing, and they know, hey, I may even hold on to you until the information that you gave me comes back true.
Right. Because you may tell me, but then you may tell them, right?
And this is one of those situations where the absolute best thing is to walk into the scenario with something like, we generally don't take information from people and say, this is legit information until we have it verified from 2 to 3 independent sources. And when I mean independent, I don't mean, well, this guy lives here and this guy lives next door to him.
He told me to talk to his brother. Right?
Yeah, like some dude, some other place, who completely is detached from this particular angle, said something very close or said basically the same thing. And that's the kind of thing where your raw information starts to become processed and like a little bit more believable. And that's a better angle to be from, is have a person that you understand their motivation, have a way to verify their information, and then have a secondary or third party who can on some level verify, because the cultural boundaries of trying to do, you know, like catching someone in deception, it's a whole different game. And like, not to disparage an entire people or anything like that, but in Afghanistan, the way their politics work and the way their tribal relationships work, and the way, like, there's a lot of cultural things where there's things that they do that are just commonplace to them. And I'm not trying to put them down or anything. It's just the way they do business in those types of scenarios, their loyalties are very different, and their willingness to basically say whatever they need to say to get something done is pretty much wide open. So you can have someone who, for their entire life, on some level, deception has been an accepted practice, and it has been an accepted mode of, you know, how you deal with people and how you get what you want. And then if you start talking about like politicians and stuff, the corruption within their systems and the I'm going to get what I can get mentality is so pervasive. It's nearly impossible to go into that and just go, oh yeah, I'm just going to talk to this guy and I'll be able to tell if he's lying or not.
And yes, it's painting a culture, but it's a accurate depiction of what
those are just
observed,
my experiences.
Right?
It's just what I've dealt with, and you know, it may be because of the scenario that I'm in, and how the relationships I deal with these people are set up. You know, if someone invaded America for whatever reason, whether we were right, wrong, or deserved it, and then came to me and tried to get information on me, I'd lie straight to their face.
Right.
You know, I don't hold any grudges. It's not a personal thing. It's not a you know, an aha, I got you, I understand who you people are kind of thing. It's very much I get the situation we're in, but from my experiences, I start from a place of, these people are lying to me, or they're holding back, or, you know, they have some sort of angle. And if I can understand the angle, I can usually get to the truth.
And that's important. So understanding on my much lower stakes level, if I was negotiating contracts with someone from Japan, I might sit across from them, and I have sat across from them, and we would go through this piece, and we'd agree, and they'd shake their head yes, they'd shake my hand, they'd leave the room, and they would tell me they're not taking it.
Yep.
And I'm like, we just like looked eye to eye, and you like shook your head, but the whole time you had no intent on ever agreeing to what we were talking about. So for me, in my background, that's not something that I would see as an okay business practice.
No.
But from their background, that's okay to do, because we need to be polite when we're in the room with you and not be rude to the offer, and then we're gonna go tell you no once we leave, right? So each culture is a little bit different, right?
Lying to your face and wasting your time, totally not rude at all.
Yeah.
sending you a polite letter to say no, I'm not gonna do what I just said I was gonna do.
Thanks for flying out.
Totally cool.
So I at a much lower level understand a little bit about the cultural piece. But it is interesting just how in different cultures, I didn't want to peg just one culture, so I was bringing up a second one, but as it can be part of the culture to be that way. So understanding the culture, understanding
well, and the thing is, I think that a lot of Americans in general look at the rest of the world and they think everyone out there is just like us, and they just live in somewhere else and they may look a little different, and it's not true. The people lose sight of culture and cultural values and, you know, cultural norms are massively different, and there's things that would blow people's minds on just a low end level. You know, just your daily walking around talking and being in public would kind of wreck people's perception of, you know, what is and isn't okay, what is a norm, and how different we really are. And so that's why, you know, once again, it's from my perspective and my value set and how we view what truth is and what integrity is and stuff like that. It's not necessarily they're liars. They're doing what is culturally acceptable. And it's also one of the reasons why, once again, sussing out the veracity of what they're saying or the angle they're coming from may be so much more difficult, because they don't have any of those emotional tells.
Right.
Because from their cultural angle and how they view what they're doing, they're not doing anything wrong.
It's like sitting across from a really good poker player. They're sitting there going, I'm just trying to win. I'm not trying to mess with you. So I don't have a tell, because this is just what I do.
Yep, exactly.
I win. So I think that's very insightful. It's interesting to see how you could take something from, it could be a skill that your life depends on in some instances, and otherwise just trying to figure out if your kid was out drinking tonight. It applies in that way.
And I think we need to keep in mind that the average American on a daily basis, what's at stake is much lower. There's probably 5 times in their entire life where it really matters. And most of those are going to be emotional moments of some sort where they're dealing with someone they know on a very intimate or emotional level. And then the other like 2 or 3 that I can think of is large purchases. Buying your car, buying your house, that sort of thing. Those are those moments. And then, you know, depending on what you do in your job, you know, there may be a couple instances in your life where dealing with a stranger and understanding whether they're telling the truth. I mean, outside of basically like police and investigators of some sort, a lot of people don't work in a realm where telling if someone's lying to you is a life or death situation, you know? And it's a very different thing. I think it's a good skill to have. It's a good thing to have some understanding with, some familiarity with. But I would say for the average person who isn't going to spend gobs and gobs of time really practicing the type of attention, because it really boils down to you. It's not, it's a different type of attention, a different type of awareness to pick out like the little tiny things that people do when they lie. Trust your instincts. Your brain is telling you no for some reason, and 95% of the time, once again, it's going to be the kind of thing where if you think someone's lying to you and you just say no, or you walk away from the situation, or you extract yourself from it, there's no life or death on the end of it.
Right.
Your
gut's probably right.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Even if they're not lying, but you just feel like they're shady, extract yourself from the situation. Yeah, do you want to be in?
There are other dealerships to go to.
Right. Is this situation so imperative that this person is the only way to get this done? And it's like, trust your instincts, believe what your brain is telling you. And, you know, I mean, once again, yes, you're absolutely going to have some false positives, and you're going to feel that people are being, you know, less than truthful with you sometimes when you're 100% wrong. At the end of the day, you know, once again, you're not pushing all your chips in. You're not betting the house on this. And
you're not a mind reader. It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, it's something innocuous.
Like you say with concealed carry, if you're not going to practice it, it may not be a skill there when you need it. So, and like anything in life, right? If I'm going to go up and do a hole-in-one, you win $1 million, but I never swung a golf club, but I have a golf club, so what are the chances?
I got a golf club, so this is for sure. This is totally happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So practice it if you're going to use it, like anything else that we talk about. But great insight.
Right on.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, let's go shoot.
Let's do it.